involved with this whole thing, I was living in New York City, and I heard about a woman who could psychically communicate with an old steamboat. That was Gloria in the movie. But I was like, I gotta meet this woman. And so it was through the nonprofit SS Columbia Project, who was restoring the boat, you know, because they had plans to bring her to New York City, which they still have not done. She's still in Buffalo. So I went out to meet Gloria, and she just really, you know, charmed the pants off me. Not literally, but I was just, I saw Boblo through her eyes. And then I started meeting all the people who were trying to save these boats. Meanwhile, I look at the boat, I'm like, why don't you guys just build a new boat? Because this is in such bad shape. But then talking to Gloria and the people like you who went to Boblo, it's so much more than just the physical material of the boat. It's all the memories and the symbol that they stand for. So I just got really into it. And then when I found out that she had a sister ship and boats could even be sisters, and I'm not even a boat guy, but I just was so enamored kind of with the mystical elements of it. So that was kind of my entry point to Boblo.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it in Canada, Boblo Island?
Yes.
So it's in Canada. So why doesn't Canada pitch in a little money? You know? I mean, really, I'm surprised that there's no Canadian presence in any of the story.
Yeah, well, we had interviewed some Canadians in there, you know. I went over to Canada multiple times to film. You know, the fate of Boblo, what happened is they just decided to, you know, it's a similar fate to a lot of smaller amusement parks. The land is worth more than the revenue that the park can bring in.
Right.
And even Michael Mudenbaugh, the gentleman who was injured in the automobile accident, he originally bought Wild Waves Amusement Park, which is just outside of Seattle. And he bought it in order to make a real estate play. But then he figured out that the guys who were running the park were losing money because they just didn't know how to run an amusement park. So he quickly made the park profitable. But he told me his long-term decades plan was, let's keep the real estate, keep the park operating, but ultimately we're going to sell it and make some money. So it just comes down to real estate. I mean, I think there's a case that could be made that, you know, the people who are living on one half of Bois Blanc or Boblo Island, they could have their little residential community, but hey, maybe on the other side there could be an amusement park. And you see Kevin in the film trying to, you know, he's thinking, his brain is turning. He's thinking maybe he can do something like that. But there is, if you do go, you drive across the Amherstburg Bridge, sorry, how do we say Amherstburg? The Ambassador Bridge, drive down to Amherstburg, and you can take a $5 car ferry over to the island. If you like birds, if you like plants, I'm a plant person myself. And actually birds, because I happen to live with a blue and gold macaw. I am now a bird person. I gotta get used to saying that. It's my girlfriend's bird, but he bites me all the time too. Anyway, it's great for doing nature hikes and walks in the park. They got a little restaurant that you saw towards the end of the movie, and an ice cream parlor, a little gift shop, although I think these shirts out here are cooler. Yeah. It's nice. It's a little sad because you see some of the structures there too, you know. Right. You have a question? Yeah, I'd love to hear your question.
What year?
Yeah, so the question was, what year did the St. Clair burn? That was in 2018. That was like July 2018. Yeah. Wow. And I saw it on the news, like maybe some of you did. And I was living in Brooklyn still at the time. Now I'm a Michigander, but that happened in 2020. So immediately I just, you know, I was kind of in a state of shock because I was very upset. But I was like, I know I got to get there. So I just went directly to the airport and bought a ticket there and flew out. And I was there later that night to interview Kevin and Jeff, that scene there. Yes, question. Yeah, so there's like some aerial shots and you see like the wipe across the screen. That was, I filmed that in, I think it was August or maybe early September 2021. Right before we released the film, because I wanted to give those guys a shot, you know, just to get the most current state. And you could see they have a team of contractors on there now. I thought for sure that Dr. Ron was going to give up. I think a lot of people did. I mean, there's nothing left.
I think it's the brain tumor.
Yeah.
I think he's a little crazy. I personally think he's a little crazy. I mean, this determination. and having all the different cancers in his body. I mean, I'm sorry, but it was just it's amazing that so many of those people followed him also.
Yeah.
I mean, if I took one look at that boat, and I'm sure some others, I would say, okay, guys, this is impossible.
Well,
Yeah, but those volunteers, they were doing it because of all the memories, right? They were just in love with that boat. But the people you see at the end, those woodworkers and the steel workers, those are not volunteers. Those are paid workers at this point.
How are they financing it now? Just donations?
No, he's in it's not a nonprofit. So the SS Columbia Project's a 501c3. They run on grants and donations. The St. Clair is like, they're opposite sisters. So that doctor is self-financing it through he owns an urgent care center in Bloomfield Hills, and he works 80 hours a week. He's just constantly working and putting money into the boat. Yeah, question. Okay, so the question was, when you're on the island, when was the last departure to go back to the city? And riding the two big steamers, right? Not the small Canadian ones. I don't know. That was a question. I never got to go to Boblo.
Well, does anybody in the audience?
I think I would guess it around 10 or 11, but I've also heard, and we'll find out from the audience, but I've heard sometimes everyone wanted to ride on the last boat because they wanted to maximize their time on the island. So sometimes that boat was full and they had to come back and make another whole trip, which was an hour and a half each way. So that's a long time. Yeah. Does anyone know when the official last ride, catch the last Boblo ride back was? I think it was around 10 or 11. Yeah, it's hard to tell this. So the audience member was talking about the '67 Detroit uprising, right? And I guess that was around the time they moved the Boblo from the foot of Woodward down to Gibraltar, where you would have to take a car. Most people then couldn't take public transportation. You'd have to take a car to Gibraltar to ride the dock. And so you're talking about how a lot of people stopped going to Boblo because of that. I think it's a similar story with Detroit. White people definitely started leaving the city after that '67 uprising. And I've talked to a lot of people who felt like in the '80s and '90s, actually Boblo was you would see a lot more black people there than you would white people. And as a matter of fact, there's a rapper called Royce da 5'9" who wrote a song called Boblo Boat, which I tried to license in the movie, but it was too expensive. But he wrote that song in 2016, and the lyrics are, "On our way to that black amusement park, wooden roller coasters, cracks sold on plastic scooter cars." And it's just, I find it so fascinating they call it a black amusement park, and I think it goes to show that you could gauge, the population of Boblo and who was there. It was a very similar thing that was happening with Detroit. Yeah.
quick question. How did we get Martha Reeves' character?
Right.
So the question is, how did we score the amazing vocalist Martha Reeves as a narrator? Pure luck. Actually, so Kevin and Jeff, they're the gay couple with the mini Boblo amusement park in their basement. They introduced me to Martha. So Jeff sells cable door to door. And literally his line in order to sell more cable is when people try to shut the door in his face when he's talking about Spectrum, he's like, "Wait, let's talk about Boblo." And they're like, "What? What are you?" So that's how he sells cable, just talking about Boblo. And he met somebody who knew Martha. And they loved entertaining people and having people over. So when I met Kevin and Jeff back in 2015, they told me, "Oh, we had Martha Reeves over here, We're friends with Smokey Robinson and stuff like that." I'm like, "Really?" People are, they're very drawn to people. They're very magnetic. And, but the first time I met Martha, I offered her, I think it was a Stella or something. She said, "I only drink Guinness." So I went and bought some Guinness beer and talked to her. And over the, I first met her in 2015, and, we've hung out personally, took her computer shopping and grocery shopping and stuff like that, because she just turned 80 years old. so she needs a little help getting around sometimes, but she's incredibly talented to work with. She hasn't done many voiceovers, but she just got her, she just turned 80, and it was announced that she will receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so she's getting her flowers. Question. So the question is, like, what are the future plans of the St. Clair? So she is still, she's been at Riverside Marina, which is pretty close to the Rooster Tail restaurant, if anyone knows where that is. She's been there since 2018. That's where she caught fire. And so Dr. Ronkatu's plans are still the same. He wants to not restore her to a certain time period. That's more of the Columbia's project. Dr. Ronkatu wants to modernize her. So he actually wants to put an elevator in the smokestack. That's one of his ideas, to make it ADA compliant. It's also a pretty badass idea. He wants to have a museum there, a gift shop, but he wants to modernize it, I mean, it'll still have the grand staircase. You'll still be able to look down in the engine room. I went there in late September, and they're continuing to work. I don't know how long it'll take, but I really believe that he's not gonna give up. He's just that type of person. He just won't say no, and he's just, no matter what happens, he's just gonna keep trying. Yeah. The archival footage. The question is where do we source the archival footage? If you want to watch some Boblo home movies, just go to YouTube and Google Boblo movies. But you'll find some stuff. But I feel like the best quality stuff in there was from the Detroit Historical Society. They also have some home videos, but they have some of the original commercials. And I was lucky because they digitized things from original camera negatives. So in the beginning of the film, you might remember that commercial where you have the sweeping shot over the Detroit River, revealing the island. They shot that, even though it was like, I don't know what year, I would guess the 70s or 80s. It was for a television spot. So really, they were gonna screen it on TVs, which are like tiny. But they shot it on 35 millimeter cameras, really great high quality cameras. And so, to my knowledge, this is the first time that we've been able to see that high quality picture as it was intended, like on a bigger screen, rather than when you saw it growing up on a TV. So they had a lot of like original 35 millimeter camera stuff that was pretty cool to work with the commercials. Yeah, so our plan for the film is continue doing film festivals until next spring. And then we are talking with Imagine Cinemas and a couple other theater chains across Michigan, the Great Lakes region, and Southern Ontario about doing a theatrical release in this area. And then after we do the theatrical release, in the summer, we're talking with PBS about doing a broadcast on PBS and then making the film available for streaming. I don't know what platform it will be on. PBS actually has an Amazon channel. I'm curious, did anyone know that? Raise your hand if you knew PBS had an Amazon channel. Okay, not too many people.
But
So
you have to pay for it.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it's available, but you have to subscribe.
Yeah. So we're trying to figure out the streaming part, but we do know that we'll be doing theatrical because this is such a great way for everyone to kind of come together and, safely share their memories and experiences. Right? Well, for the DVD, there's so many bonus features that we could put in there. So, and I've already edited them because they had to be cut out, but they're still scenes, so we just put them in the bonus features.
Well, I just want to thank all of you for coming. The film festival is still going. We have tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. Please come out, and we will have just as good experience. But I want to thank Aaron for coming. What a wonderful film. I can feel the memories and the love for the island and for your film. So thank you so much.